So I always pay attention to the medical side of things. So I'm watching this Upworthy Science thing about phages and phage therapy. And I'm like, phages? You talking about like the viruses, the muphages that infect bacteria, like that are in my compost DNA readings? And I'm like, huh? And so I start watching a video, and it's about superbugs and antibiotic resistant superbugs. And so I'm like, okay, this is super important. My son gets staph infections because, as you saw, he's a very serious professional athlete, training on the mats all the time. Staph infections killed a jiu-jitsu athlete in the airport in Thailand before they could fly home to get treated in America. So it's very real. My son's had to go to the hospital because he could barely walk at a certain point because staph got into his muscle. And so superbug resistance is something that I worry about as a dad. And I started looking into this, and phage therapy is the little viruses that attack bacteria and fungi that are the communication between bacteria and fungi. And also, they act like viruses, killing, and destroying bacteria and fungi. So, and there's obviously a play between these two things where there's like phages that are part of the orbit of the bacteria. If you guys know what I'm talking about, they discovered that they hold chunks of DNA in orbit and phages in orbit and exchange it with other bacteria. But it's beyond that. These infect the bacteria and then turn the bacteria into phage replication machines, and then they destroy the bacteria and they send out all those phages. This is just like viruses, right? And then they infect the next thing, and then they spread more phages until it's gone. Now, each bacteria has a unique phage that can take it out. And so it's really up to nature for and us being observant and in alignment and aware and keen to grab these phages from nature and fit them and match them to the superbug. And they're doing this, folks. And you're like, where could they be finding this? Uh, well, a young girl who had a double lung transplant was saved by phages growing on a rotting eggplant. I see the phages in the compost already. I knew they were there, but I didn't know that they were already looking there. And when we talk about how these are bioreactors, solutions coming from nature, where we're digesting things and getting the enzymes, the things that are in it that get taken out, those things can continue onward and can take that out elsewhere. What do I mean by that? The microbes get trained on what they eat, and then you can take those trained microbes and apply them to a context, and they'll eat that thing. But there's so much limitless potential within the microbiology. And we have these bioreactors with so much diversity in them, living soil greater than any, you know, current access to at the university level to really healthy soils. We're pioneering that in regenerative soil. We're pioneering that regenerative ag, regenerative gardening, permaculture, natural farming, all of that. And so the best soils are coming out of these spaces and coming out of these composts, and they have the most diversity, which means they have the most possibility for solutions, for phages, for actual new level medical change. And so you're like, oh, but those superbugs are going to adapt, Matt. Uh-huh. And so do the phages. You you see where this goes now. And you're like, oh, but you could hurt someone. Actually, they took billions of phages and pumped it into this really old man who was going to die. They said he was going to die. There's no way it was all throughout his body. He was going to die. It was in his organs. There was no hope. And so that's why they did it as an experimental procedure. And the woman telling the whole story is the wife of the survivor. She worked in this field, and that's why she was able to, feel confident also to ask the right people. So she's in the medical health field, and they pump billions of these phages, these microbial viruses essentially. So they're smaller than like the ones attacking us, and it didn't do anything to the person harmful. Like it was harmless to the person. It targeted all the superbug is like bacteria in his body, in his organs, in his blood, everywhere. It was transported around and saved his life. This is the realization I've been waiting for medicine to have. So much of what we're doing is reactive or trying to be preventative. We're putting up a wall. Meanwhile, nature is always iterating. These superbugs are becoming antibiotic resistant. Most of the antibiotics are coming from streptomyces, which is the second most common microbe in the soil. And we've already talked about it, several times this week. It is an endophyte. It's a plant growth promoting endophyte. It's a primary, saprophyte. It's false fungi, so it looks like fungi. A lot of people get that confused. Like, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a conversation between different microbes in the soil. So why don't we go back to the soil since streptomyces is and other microbes, penicillium, they're soil bound too. Uh-huh. It's all soil. It's all soil. Our medicine came from soil. Our medicine's going to come from soil, and we're going to go deeper than antibiotics, and we're going to do this proactive method that is going to change everything. And so we're going to be natural and adaptive rather than chemically attacking. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not saying this is a prescription, but I'm saying this is something that we all can go and look up and learn about and read about. Phage therapy started before antibiotics became popular. They Antibiotics displaced it. And now, because of the communication network we have globally, that girl in San Diego was saved by that rotting eggplant in South Africa. You see where we're headed? Yeah, it only worked for attacking the target organism. I just wanted to make sure you guys are being able to hear me. I did something new with the volume just to make sure a video works. All right, so now we can begin. So that is my story about medicinal compost and the future of our relationship with the medical side of things. The world is going to soon change. We're going to be looking towards nature for solutions and answers in a completely different way. And that's just one story, one aspect of what I'm going to share today, because our future of regenerative soil is going to be a regenerative future because soil is a linchpin to any regenerative economy, any regenerative culture and civilization. So when I say it's important, it's at the heart of all of these things. It's at the center of everything. And we are quite literally in a soil crisis. The fields, they're overtilled. I know that John says he's not dogmatic about tillage. It's all about being appropriate. And you heard my talk, before. It is about being appropriate with it. We'll talk about about that later, but this is the real problem. Folks are having it rain and look, do you guys see the water is washing away the topsoil? Do you guys see that? The cracking, the 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 subsoils are being exposed. And this is also the case that they're spraying harmful chemicals which are killing the life and killing that the structure there. And so that's also why it's being washed away. And these guys, they've got to protect themselves from all those chemicals. And even so, There's a high incidence of cancer. That's why people lose. I mean, that's why people like Monsanto lose in court because people are getting sick. And these soils are made of fungi. And when I say 30 to 50% is arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, it's also the fungi itself, both living and dead, that help make up that structure. And if we're killing it, we're losing it. So when it rains, especially when those fields are planted up to the riparian edges, we have die-offs. We kill things. There's eutrophication, something everyone learned in high school. And the story of dirt erosion of civilizations, you guys know this story, is that everywhere we practice tillage and chemical agriculture, we cause desertification and eutrophication. And it's ancient. It's 10,000 years of desertification. Right now, 12 million hectares of land is lost every year to desertification. And if you've got your climate going from Mediterranean to desert, you just change your climate, right? Right. So the Fertile Crescent, it was so fertile. Where did the fertility go? Right? Come on. It was the birthplace of agriculture. In China, the birthplace of agriculture is the Loess Plateau. And they desertified that. It became a desert. The Loess yellow silt is the thing carried down by the river that makes it the Yellow River. It's also the reason it's called the River of Sorrow, because every time it jumps its dikes, it kills millions of people. Last time it did that, it killed 20 million people. This is not a joke. Empires are defined, the fall of an empire is defined by them not taking care of the dikes in China. And that all this starts with a legacy that is the same legacy we see in the Fertile Crescent, where agriculture destroyed the soil structure, destroyed all of it. And so now you have a desert. But it was once so fertile, we could start agriculture there, right? So there's not a new problem. So we're talking about the climate's changing and all these things. We're talking about bringing back trees, soil, bringing back, the watersheds, water retention, and we can do that. But now our current situation, and this is an average, some places are doing better, some places are doing terrible. Some places just lost, like we just learned, they just lost the battle to desertification this year. So there's an average, globally average 55 to 60 harvests of topsoil left. Remember all the shortages that happened? Uh, and there's areas that it's continuing to happen, but it's linked to fertilizer, depleted soils, fertilizer, being not acquirable or more expensive in a shortage is causing all this pain, famine, hunger, civil unrest, food shortages, rationing. They're rationing at different times in the past 5 years. They've rationed food at different times in Europe and in the UK. But this is really just a preview of what could happen if we keep going the wrong direction. Soil is the linchpin. So if we lose the soil, we lose it all. And that's your local food, your local fiber, your local meat, your local medicine, your local economies. And you're like, oh, we import everything, Matt. Oh, we just import everything. What happens when, and I mean, historically, this does happen when there's a drought in the countries you're getting food from? What happens when there's a war and the countries don't agree any longer and stop trade? Rome literally conquered Egypt to get their food production because Rome had no more soil. Yeah. And this is part of the reason why Rome fell is they had no actual core stability. They relied upon everyone for everything, and they had no ability to provide for themselves. The stability of our civilization depends upon our soil. And it's not just me saying this. This is Plato. This is Aristotle. This is Thomas Jefferson. This is George Washington. All of them have said that soil and the depletion and loss of it threatens their nation and their way of life. So The real question we are facing and answering is what if farmers all over the world healed their soils as they produce food? That's the question. Wait, before I get any further, who am I? I'm Matt Powers. I was a musician. I became a teacher. I fell in love with teaching and education. In the process of teaching everyone how to live more regeneratively, I went from gardening to permaculture to becoming a citizen scientist. And my kids have grown up in this. I don't know if you've been watching all week, you've seen my babies as babies, and now they're grown up. And in the process, in the past 10 years, I've been able to release 24 different publications. A couple of those ones are new editions. A bunch of them are, seven of them are different, are translations. But it's been an incredible time. It's all about creating the bridge to the regenerative future, creating the educational resources, the curriculum, the courses, so that those career paths can happen, so that people can practice regenerative gardening, regenerative farming, scaling it up. People can have better systems, whether you're a compost company, whether you're just a backyard composter, all of it improves when you have a fluent understanding of how the way the world works. And we need to train people so that that regenerative economy makes the world a better place. Because it's not just farmers, it's the ranchers, it's the dairies, it's what we're doing with our waste, all of the levels. So, question that we're asking here today, though, is what if farmers all over the world healed soils as they produced food? Well, if they followed the things we've been talking about this weekend, as we talk about in my courses and books, 50% less fertilizer in that first season, right off the bat. Just a little bit of home run right there, right? Boom, less cost. So, how? Well, we talked about this. You can get 47% to 82% of your nitrogen needs with nitrogen fixing bacteria that are living inside the plant, the endophytes. And you've seen these numbers. We talked about them. And then if we add our muscular mycorrhizal fungi, we get 30 to 40% more yield, which, it's going to give you more profit as well, up to 40%, up to 34%. And we talked about those. You've seen those days. So how? Well, it creates comparable or superior supply of phosphate. So it's comparable or superior to phosphate fertilization. And then there's a rapid soil organic matter growth. That's what SOM is, soil organic matter. It's the carbon. Up to 0.75 in 2 months. Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about that. Well, it's because that's what plants want to do. The plants and the biology, the fungi, and the endophytes all work together. And we see it. We see it here 400 times the annual increase of atmospheric carbon dioxide. So, yeah. And in fact, in Iowa and Nebraska, the number one limiting source is carbon. In their growing season, they're surrounded by fields and fields of plants producing oxygen. They don't have compost windrows. They don't have the CO2. A lot of them don't have, because of what they did, they don't have any fungi. And so there's no CO2. And so this is why people that are growing, crops that they can afford to do this with, they're pumping in CO2. They need more CO2 to grow a proper crop. So we have to really recognize that we need to rebuild our soils. We need to rebuild the cycles. We need to be cycling more CO2. We just need to bring in nature to manage it. It's all because we've lost nature. And instead of bringing back nature, there's all these greenwashed, tyrannical, awful solutions that people have come up with to displace, keep nature displaced, keep the problem in place so that they can have control and take people's rights away and make continue the problem so that they can continue to exert power. And the reality is, no, people have figured it out. People are learning, the real power of plants, the real power of soil to fix and then manage the situation we are in. So we got to bring back the mycorrhizal fungi. And, we say 30 to 50% of soil organic matter is drawn down in that season and created by arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi. They're actually also embodying that because remember they're senescing, and so they're dead. They're not really dead. They can resurrect and enter the new root when it arrives, but that's functionally what it is when they're doing these tests. So it includes them. And these exudates that are coming out, they're also being reabsorbed up to 90%. And so you got to ask yourself, is that 10% that's being shed constantly in this process, is that good enough? And I say no. Ray Archuleta says no as well. And so this is why we mulch, because look how much, 45% of that carbon is in the body of the plant. 25% is the root mass. So you're losing a huge portion, and obviously 25% of exudation that's out there, that is embodied, that is there in the root when it breaks down, is there, that's getting broken down too, and it's not being reabsorbed. So at the end of the season, that's why you see this huge reaction too, because that pump, that reabsorption stops. And so you may see a sudden jump in your overall organic matter levels. This is all part of it. This is why no till. Why we crimp it down and let it go slow. It's why. And if you've been with us all week, you get the idea. I'm preaching to the choir at this point. We're preventing the Fenton reaction. And that's oxidizing the soil organics. So all the organic matter, is being gassed off as carbon and nitrogen, but all the finer nutrients that are attached to that, the cations, right? And anions, depending on what we're talking about and the conditions that you're in. But all those things are starting to be either locked up or leached or turned into different forms, gassed off. And so we have to bring in as much biology as possible and keep these things alive. We got to protect these things. And if we kill them, they're not regenerative. We need them to last that winter. It's also why we crimp it down. That's why we have this mycorrhizal fungi. We want it to be a one and done. And we'll hear about that in a second here. So comparable or superior pest and disease control is possible. And I put comparable or superior disease and pest control because I'm speaking to everybody. Before, it's funny when we did that panel, I was stuck on speaking to people who would never, ever use sprays. And that's been a lot of my audience. I mean, the permaculture audience, they're not doing glyphosate, they're not doing Roundup, they're not doing any of those things. Organic gardeners are dealing with pest pressure like crazy because they're not spraying. And so it's important, though, to win over the people who do spray. And we need to tell them that we can get superior or superior pest and disease control just by being preventative. Just by being preventative. And then we can be reactive as we learned, right? Right. And we'll have more on this later, but not too far later. But let's dig into this. So I'm going to share some stories, some success stories now. Thank you all for being here. I saved these ones for the finale because we can really see the future, and I knew that the people who would be here are the people who have been with us the whole week, and we're really excited. And so I saved these special stories for you. All right. So in Utah, and I saved the location so you can get an idea for the range of expression because I'm in Texas now. I was in Northern California, and then I was in Washington State, and then I was Southern California, and then I was in Missouri, and then I was in Central Valley, California. I've been everywhere in terms of those places and seen those soils and consulted with all sorts of people in those areas. But then through my courses, and that's my personal experience, then through my courses, I've taught people all over and helped people and consulted with people through the internet all over. And I just want to show you that, beyond my range of personal experience, beyond my own experience, I'm seeing all of this happen. And I want to show you how wild it can be. So the first edition of Regenerative Soil comes out, and this book gets picked up by Corey. He gets used by his wife, and I didn't hear about it until the second edition. That's why the second edition cover is there. But this happened before that. They doubled their harvests, and they gave their excess and abundance to the hungry in the area, and contributed to the local food bank, so they had the best food possible. But these are the folks that had me come and speak when I was advertising the advanced permaculture student online. They already had permaculture student two. They knew all the Elaine Ingham methods. They knew all the Sepp Holzer, Jeff Lawton, Bill Mollison, Fukuoka, Joel Saladin, Curtis Stone, Jean-Martin Fortier, all of that. They were dialed in. They were rocking. I was impressed. I was blown away. Things were large. It was abundant. And they doubled that with this book. They didn't even take the course. Yeah, I still want to take the course, but but I'm telling you, the book is as powerful because the information is this powerful because it's nature that I am creating a window picture frame with my work around. And nature, then, when you see it and understand it, begins to speak to you. And that's your backyard. That's your site. That's the feedback loop, whether it's Utah or Florida. I don't have to have lived there to understand it. You don't either. I have people who are using this information to consult for people outside of their bioregion and solving those issues for them that they're facing because they're universal principles. We talked about the five linchpins to soil, and they're expressed here. We can see it. So, a professional beekeeper in Florida reached out to me and said this: watched your YouTube extensively and live your style and information. I think like your styles. I own this company. I'm not gonna unless he asked me to share the company. I'm not gonna do that. And produce honey and have 5 acres of peaches and 5 acres of navel oranges on land I bought last year that were traditionally maintained. And I set on a quest to regenerate the soil. I have a huge idea on citrus greening. 75% of the trees are dead to this bacteria. But I found a 2 acre plot of abandoned trees that are thriving after 20 years of being abandoned in a pine forest. I want to harness the soil from this land. So a pine forest would be acidic, right? More acidic, right? Especially in the root zone areas, it'll be acidic. And this is Florida, remember? So there's a huge part of that, right? I want to harness the soil from this land and maybe mulch a few trees and make a good compost tea from the soil and inoculate my land. However, this could be a huge solution to the greening problem, so I was hoping to recruit you as a guide in this quest to make sure I optimize the trial. And what do you think I did? Feel free to add to the chat. What do you guys think I did? If you've heard the story, don't answer. Uh, I recommended IMO, not EM. I'm like the EM guy, right? I recommended Chris Trump's IMO method because you want to gather those microbes. You want to then, and IMO doesn't start. It starts there with the capturing the microbes, but then you literally add a chunk of that soil into your prep in later IMO iterations. Did you guys know that? You're literally taking forest soil and adding it to your prep, inoculating it physically after you've trained the biology. IMO is a very sophisticated mycology for farming that's all in non-sterile work patterns. It's amazing, amazing. And so I recommended my book. I showed him the sections from my book. It gave me an ebook. And he followed Chris Trump, Dr. Well, Master chose recipes and then used Chris Trump's preps. So Chris Trump has created all these different preps, all the different timing, all these different, liquid IMO and all these different amazing things. I mean, it's he's a hybrid, right? And he's got his own ideas. But he's been taught by Elaine Ingham. So he already was trained in the microscope by her like over a decade ago. And then he was taught by Master Cho in person. And so he's like combining these things, liquid IMO, compost tea with IMO. And so incredible, incredible information from Chris and guidance and ideas and recipes and things that he shared that are in my book. And so I just always want to honor him for that. And this is how I always think about the different options and the different, things. And so watch this. So we talked about this. It was the easiest, cheapest way to do it, doing the IMO. And look at this in one season. And this is all within months. This went from winter into that spring. And so, dude, my peaches look freaking awesome. This is 2023, notice. 5 acres of them, no spray at all. There's no bugs. I'm going to do a free you pick where you give an equal amount to a homeless person next week. Again, this passing it forward, paying it forward, we saw that with USU, didn't we? Same thing here. Whew, it affects me. And that's why I do it. I believe really strongly that this is how greatness is imbued into a community when that abundance overflows and we have that natural abundance in creation showing us what's possible, showing us the real way that things work and us living it out. Thanks, man. I love your book and appreciate your YouTube videos. Thanks, Charlie, for doing the work, for paying it forward, right? Thanks, Charlie. And thank you. Thank you. Because I know you're going to do the work. But you know what? If you've already heard this story, well, it doesn't end there. If you heard this story that I told this before at another live, well, I'm going to tell more because over a year later, in July, about to be August, the heat of the summer, it continues. You see, Charlie, his little icon on bees there. He cares about the health of the plants because that's the health of his bees. He is looking at a bio indicator for his system, just like Stefan Sokobiak, permaculture orchardist up in Quebec, is looking at the birds because he's actually trained as an ornithologist. Did you know that? Our community is so amazing, so amazing. And so many of us realize that it's in living this way, working this way, creating actual businesses that we actually can help the biology. We actually can build the soil. And so many of us we're teaching, so many of us we're consulting, but we're also living it. We're doing it. We're building the soil. I doubled the soil organic matter here in one season. We went from zero point 0.6 to 1.2. It is possible. So look at the orange trees thriving. Best in the area I have seen. We did absolutely nothing, just left them alone, not even irrigation. So by following those first steps, doing that preemptive work, that inoculation work, now they can step back and let the living system manage itself and run with the flywheel of life. I bought a special Italian flail mower that can mow under the trees without glyphosate. This is unbelievable. He can now invest. How, this is how the change happens, folks. We must give people the wiggle room. And isn't this what I've been saying, that it's going to be less work over time? Where did he get the extra money for that? Where did he get the extra yield to give away? This is what I've been saying. We get an abundance, we get an improvement, we get insect resistance, disease resistance. He applied specific recipes in a specific pattern, is all he did. And it harnessed the local IMO that in that abandoned orchard to stabilize his entire system in less than one season. And then 1 year later, after you stabilized in one season, he transformed the way he managed the whole system. He could take his foot off the gas because the cruise control was on now. So he now can. He couldn't then. He did the steps and now he can. Amazing, right? I want you to witness and be the observer and see these benefits firsthand. That's why I got all into the minutia, the details down to the individual microbes and how to identify them, making microbial profiles and case studies and holistic testing so that you can see it for yourself. Because seeing is believing, and seeing is verifying, and replicating with verification is the key to spreading the regeneration. And making those biofertilizer blends, those IMOs, making those inoculants. And now he can help way more. He can help himself more. He can help others more. He can help the soil. He can help the plants. It's holistic. Real success is holistic. It's not just money. It's his whole community is benefiting from the microbes in the soil, all the way through the plant, through the bodies, through the hearts and the minds. It's amazing. But this is how the world works when it's regenerative. So unlock that abundance and remember it starts with the soil. And remember, Terraganics is able to reduce those nitrogen inputs by 50%, right? Well, that's because we saw those numbers. We saw that in the research, but that's only one aspect. There's more to it when we talk about EM and biofertilizers. This is Eric Lancaster, former VP of sales or marketing at Terraganics.
Had a farm, Eastern Arizona, alluvial soils, right? It's basically old river soil beds. When the guy cut his field to prepare planting of jalapenos, you could see a salt ridge go all the way diagonally across the field. It was literally a white salt ridge, right? Ooh. And, the plant suffered. I'm saying to the guy, okay, we're going to take this, we're going to add activated EM. That's pretty much the way you're going to use it all the time. So add the activated EM in with your fertilizer. And what you do is he's got an irrigation system. So you inject fertilizer in one tank and you inject the EM in another tank right in with the irrigation water. We had him apply 1 pound per acre of mycorrhizae, right, to add in the mycorrhizae. He used humic acid. He noticed within his first year, I didn't mention this, the organic matter was 0.2%. Okay, it's desert soil, right? It went to 0.75 within 2 applications of EM. The soil started to get softer.
How many weeks? 1 season?
2 months.
Whoa.
Yeah. We saw the organic matter start to go up. His salt, you can go in that field and you won't see salts anymore. That salt ridge is gone. And his moisture content his moisture retention has increased in a desert soil where he's cut his irrigation by 30%. Eliminated his salt 30%. Problems. He's increased his organic matter. We put on mycorrhizae once, right? And so this big solution to fungi is, let's put out mycorrhizae. Okay, how are you going to feed the mycorrhizae? Did you know that they feed on lactic acid? So when you put in EM, you're literally completing the food chain.
Yeah. How crazy is that, you guys? That it's immediate that the organic matter starts to build. And we're talking about Arizona. It's desert. it's extremely hard to grow in without a lot of water. 30% less water now by just adding microbes? Yes, because they built the organic matter so now that can hold more water. It's a huge change. But you're like, Matt, I love it. I'm going to do it strategically, maybe a foliar spray, maybe a drip sometime. But what else can I do? Okay, what else can I do DIY? Maybe like natural farming. You brought up the IMO, you had the peaches guy, you're talking about this guy, Chris Trump. That's right. Let's hear from Chris
So
Trump.
I had a busy work time, was making my liquid IMO. Actually, I was making a new batch of IMO3. I had run out of IMO for making my liquid IMO for spraying my trees. And so I'm making a new batch. I go to this stockpile of substrate I have because I have a lab with all my materials in it. They're all ready for me whenever I need. I just walk in there and I can make anything for my farm. And I don't, and that's really, I think, the key for natural farming. If you want to farm this way, set yourself up with a lab where everything's there. And that is getting over the hump of it feeling hard. All of a sudden, it feels easy. So the lab is the key. I'm in my lab. I got my substrate. However, it's Hawaii. And so I've got weevils now in my substrate. I pour it into my box to start mixing everything, and it's full of these little beetles.
Yeah.
They're little tiny black things in my grain. And I'm like, oh, darn it. Can I stop? And I'm like, I'm 40 minutes to where I would buy more grain. And I got a full work day and a busy farming week. And so I'm like, no, we'll just let them go. And so I make my IMO3 and it's finishing up. I'm exploring it, looking at all the chunks of fuzz and mycelium that's invaded this whole swath of material. And I see all these little white puffballs. And every time I find a weevil, they're covered in a white puffball, little fuzz, like little cotton balls. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Very curious. I wish I could stop and throw this all under my microscope and spend a day and a half researching it, but I don't have time right now. So I throw it in the storage bin. I make my liquid IMO, get it started. That's going out in 36 hours on the tractor. One of my staff is spraying that out. I am walking through the spray swath that my staff sprayed, just as a good farmer, observing the work and walking through the trees. How did the trees react? Did we knock off flowers? And all the things. And I see in some of the crook of the trees, I see some puffballs. I see white little puffballs on green stink bugs, which is one of our main pests. It almost took our business out before. It's this little beetle with a carapace, and it's covered in the same fuzz my weevils were covered in. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. What's happening here? And so I could not resist. At that point, I went full dive into beetles and pathogens and all this thing, only to discover that the leading pathogen for carapace insects and beetles in general are fungi.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see some of the scale we have. We have this thing, white felted coxid, and there's little bits on our farm that they were predated on. They were being eaten by some of the bugs, and there was also a fuzz that got on some of them. So I logged that away. It was like, oh, okay. So I am taking cultures from the wild, and by adding a substrate that they like to eat, which is that like chitinase protein that they're multiplying in my process of turning and keeping aerobic, and that I can actually get transfer through a liquid foliar application of that pest management organism. And that was like, I was excited. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't talk about it. I was farming. And really, I didn't make any videos. I didn't teach until I was handing off my management to my younger brother and moving away from the farm, which was 2015, 2016, really 2014 I started teaching. Steve calls me up and he's like, Chris, Zimbabwe here. I've got this big, project on 300 acres, and the locusts are coming through. We're getting destroyed by grasshoppers. It's marching through the farm. It's killing my hemp project, and I got this big important field. I'm like, here's something. He's like, what can we do in natural farming? I was like, well, here's something I discovered a few years ago. Da, 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 da. And I laid out the whole thing. And I was like, so try it a couple ways here. You can try it with an IMO1 collection where you put the beetles material in that rice box that you're putting out in nature. So you're cultivating in something on food that they would like to eat, and try it like I did, that IMO3. And so he tried it both ways. He said he felt like it was more effective. He got better growth on the carapace when he did it with the IMO1, and then grew it out with IMO3. And then he sprayed his field with the liquid IMO from this, and he had grasshopper die off and then prevention. The rest of the farm continued to get the pressure and got eaten by a lot of grasshoppers. And his section that he sprayed, this hemp project that he sprayed with liquid IMO, with the IPMO in it, he had no more damage, and he went full crop, no damage. So since then, we've played with it. Other people have played with it on their farms, and we've had very similar success where we can wildcraft Bavaria bassiana. Bavaria bassiana is all over the world. It's in all kinds of places. We find it in so many soil types. It's slightly different than the one they made for the lab. It's a patented product because it's a specific strain. However, not all of it's exactly DNA the same. And so there's indigenous versions, but then there's also things that are predatory to beetles that aren't that specific microbe. There's lots of other things that eat it. And so it's simple tech. It's a very, and it's again back to that, what is the food source we're providing to cultivate the microbe we want?
Yeah. So nature provides solutions through cycling. We're simply adding the biology that's present, training it, and reintroducing it. Absolutely amazing. You can respond. You can prevent. I just want you to know that. You can fix the problem in the middle of the problem, but you could also prevent the problem by achieving the full genetic potential. You'll have the most abundant plants, the deepest colors, the most intense flavors, the most nutrient density. And that equals, protection, because nutrient deficiency is vulnerability to pests and disease and viruses. And it all comes down to the plant health pyramid and understanding this. So I'm going to give you some takeaways today, some keys today to go really deep with this, high level. So let's dive into it. So insects and pathogens feed on weak and vulnerable plants. We all kind of know this, but where does that all start? Well, weak plants can't keep up with photosynthesis. Like they just have too much sugar, or they have nitrates. So the sun turns on, they can't handle their sugars. They have too much, and they can't transform them into the polysaccharides, the longer chain sugars that are harder to break down. And so the monosaccharides, they are non-reducing, so they're not bringing energy. The reducing ones are bringing energy to the plant. And so the non-reducing sugars, the monosaccharides, they bring pathogens. So the plant calls out for its own destruction. We've seen this. So it's like, man, this plant is just like getting destroyed. It doesn't seem like it's fighting back. Well, if they are tapped into the right side of things and the right patterns and cycles, they feed the soil and they become power plants. That energy from photosynthesis continues to add and build up over time in the organic matter. And they have to process it all the way through. They have to go through their full cycle in order to process those sugars and utilize them. So they're either doing that or they aren't. And if they aren't, they're putting out stress signals to be eaten and composted in place. But if not, they're so strong, they're invisible. So don't eat a big meal right before you go to bed. We all kind of know this after 35, 40. You got to give yourself some time to digest, folks. And so the same goes for the plants, okay? They have to obey time and they don't have a choice. They must continue the journey. The sun came up again. When you're powered by the ambient environment, you're unable to turn off the flow. Plants are primarily passive organisms, and they have, unless they have the internal and external biology in place, digesting and helping them and immunologically supporting them, they're going to get attacked. And they evolve with all those organisms in place. And so that's why they're so effective. So, what does this mean? We need to support the plants so that they can do all these processes fully. We need to support photosynthesis. We need to support it because it's so basic. It's the ionic exchange. Those protons are the thing flooding the soil and reducing the soil, making it more acidic, but also liberating those cations, liberating those nutrients. And if we enhance photosynthesis, we affect everything. So the bottom two layers, photosynthesis and protein synthesis, they're the thing that is going to leave you ultimately most vulnerable, and it comes down to minerals. We're going to talk about that. So excess nitrates, they attract pests as well, and so it really comes down to minerals. These are the minerals. You can screenshot this. These are literal minerals that you need. And so when folks say, I just need biology, if you don't have these minerals bioavailable, if we do a plant sap analysis with the sensing sensor, that the Nutriscope that they're going to be letting me have and model, I'm going to know if I'm low on any of these things, and it's immediately going to tell me if my plant is vulnerable. So this you could only need one of these things at higher level, or it could be all of these things, but you could only know by testing and then doing mineral or mineral rich sprays. So soluble kelp, EM digested kelp, rock dust, mineral ocean minerals, mineral rich compost tea, composted manure for nitrogen, fish emulsion for nitrogen, magnesium sulfate, Epsom salt, chelated minerals, iron and manganese, soil soaks of various sorts with these kinds of things. So we've got options, but now you're like, what about the other minerals, Matt? Yeah, yes, yes. We have to be aware of them all. And I go over all the cycles and what to do in the case of toxicity or deficiency in my course and my book. Obviously, the book, you know what I mean? It gives you a lot, but you get so much more inside the course because it's 20 weeks, you get lifetime access. You get to ask me. I mean, if you want me to be your personal consultant, this is the best way to do it, right? So level 3 to 4, the top of the pyramid is, as John Kempf always says, robust microbiology. And this was the thing that got me so excited about studying this because it was such a black box. I was so curious, so interested. Who is the biology? What is going on with the biology? And that's what led me down all these rabbit holes to be looking at the names for things and looking at what is the active ingredient, finding the studies, linking it all together, understanding the plant secondary metabolite synthesis and lipid synthesis at its fundamentals. Lipids are fats, and plant secondary metabolites are the smell, taste, terpene, essential oils, and medicinal compounds. They don't make these things unless everything else is going well. They are an afterthought, right? They're not survival dependent. They're secondary metabolites, and they protect the plant, no doubt, but they don't make them unless they have enough energy. So it's a sign of abundance. It's a sign of plant wealth to have those things, right? So which microbes are we talking about, Matt? Let's get a little specific. Just like a food forest that fills all the niches, you're going to have all the different microbes. So we need mycorrhizae that's appropriate. We need endophytes that belong to that plant type. Remember, we talked about how, yeah, the arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi is, ushered in by the cerevisiae yeast, but the not the the ectomycorrhizal fungi is lager yeast. So know your yeasts, right? Right. Know your endophytes. And then the rhizophagia inputs, surface and leaf microbes, rhizobacteria, all of it. You need all of it. And if you're missing one of these things, something's going to come along and occupy them. And that's why we fortress our plants with beneficials. We fill in the spaces, or nature will for us. And if you've got an awesome living ecosystem and you plant in living soil and you've got a living canopy and everything's there, it'll fill good spaces in because you've already done the work and started the flywheel. And it's again that moment where because you did the work, you get to change how you manage. But unless you've done the work, you can't do it that way, right? It's like that guy shooting from the hip and like he's like it's his art. He's like you know, doing this unbelievable sharpshooter thing. It's like you can't go get just do that. He put in the work. We have to put in the work. Soil biology has the greatest effect on soil pH and EH and nutrition. So because it can shift it into the Goldilocks zone, suddenly the nutrients are in the right form. It's all one thing. It's all one thing. And once you see it, you're on the pathway to fluency. And you're also on the pathway to the peak. So who produces those lipids, Matt? The peak express on our way to the peak, that expression. Well, it's arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi. Hypholysis is where the energy storage, the lipids that the arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi produces as it senesces and it forms spores and starts life again. It leaves behind these lipids, and they can be absorbed by the plant or they can be part of the carbon addition into the soil. So you can see here that's that reddish one that is old senesced mycorrhizal fungi. You can actually see it go all the way around the cell. You can see the more active ones that are glowing, and then where it's really glowing is delivering phosphorus right to between the 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 cell wall and the cell membrane. And that's why it creates that glow there. That's mycorrhizae. It's got a lot of roles, but and it's so incredibly important. This is a page from Regenerative Soil, and we go over all of these aspects in detail. And also, which ones are better at which one do you want for your climate in regenerative soil? And then you got to understand the endo, you got to understand the ecto. The endo is your annuals, grasses, most of your perennials. It's the largest group. It's over 90%. So the same mycorrhizal fungi that's in your annuals can be the right one for your food forest. How easy is that? So your trees, your grasses, your annual expression, all of them can share the same fungal relationships. And when I say that, ecto can actually in real time be sharing hyphae in a larger fungal mat, producing mushrooms and connecting multiple trees. Arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi is days to weeks that its life cycle is. So it's going bleep, 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 and then it senesces. So it's not making a giant mat of hyphae that connects your whole thing. That's not how it works. It's different behaviorally. But you get a lot of flushes. You get a lot of expression. You get tons of carbon, tons of gibberellin, and gibberellin. And so it's all part of this. And that's ecto. That's arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi is the main ecto, but there's also orchid mycorrhizae and the little blueberries, right? The azaleas, that's the ericoid mycorrhizae. So it's not just arbuscular, it's the dominant one. There's other mycorrhizae that are ecto, meaning they go in between the cell wall and cell membrane. They don't go past the cell membrane. Got to remember that. And then ecto in sheaths. Sorry, I misspoke. Endo is the one that I was just talking about. Ecto is the one that ensheaths. Ecto is the one that's super rare, and it's in the alpine. I mean, if you're doing landscaping, you're going to be used as. That's why it's super rare in our food growing context and our regenerative ag context. But you might have a timber stand where you're doing this. This is common though in the higher altitudes and latitudes. It dominates, and it also forms those mats. And there are trees that do both endo and ecto: eucalyptus, poplar, willow, aspen, cottonwood, and alder. It's a very small group though. And then there's those other mycorrhizae that I talked about. And of course, there's the non-mycorrhizal that are there to throw a monkey wrench in everything. Ah! Though brassica using trichoderma allows our brassicilla mycorrhizal fungi to partner with it. So traditionally, this has been non-mycorrhizal fungi, and I have it here so that we're aware that without our brassicilla mycorrhizal fungi, it is non-mycorrhizal. But or without trichoderma, it is non-mycorrhizal. And those are the weeds, those are the establishment plants. And as they break down, they make way for the early successional grasses. Uh, I mean, this is why daikon radishes, they rot, are so great for corn, right? Right. You can see it's a cycle, it's succession. It wants to do it. But the thing that you have to think about is when you don't have mycorrhizal fungi, you have no mycofilter to protect those plants. So you have hyper accumulation of anything. And so we got to protect those plants, got to keep those roots growing. Now, endophytes. We've talked a lot this week about the rhizophages cycle. Plant roots, they feast upon the bacteria and fungi of the soil, destroying many of them, and then farming a bunch of them. And then the endophytes providing e- exactly what they need: in situ fertilizer and antioxidants. And there's nitrogen fixing in the trichomes of all plants, from both the bacteria and the fungi, and we can make brews. We can create rhizophagy inputs. But what about the endophytes? They're having to give up that nitrogen, and that nitric oxide combines. Well, the nitrogen combines with superoxide to create nitric oxide. Now, that superoxide is a ROS, a reactive oxygen species, and that's why it causes stress. So that's why the endophytes are providing antioxidants that strengthen the plant and make the plant more beneficial to us. So when Dr. James White is saying things that folks are like, what is he talking about? We eat microbes. Microbes are our health. The medicine is the microbes. This is what he's talking about. Ethylene is how the root hair grows. No microbes, no root hair growth. It's produced by this process. So it's provide nitric oxide or die, as Dr. James F. White says. Thus, endophytes entering the root must be able to fix or release nitrogen. And this is so beneficial for the roots. This is so powerful for plants that there is so much to cover here. I'm not going to go into it all, but this is from the book. This is from the course. We go into so many different endophytes, surface and leaf microbes, and rhizobacteria, rhizobia. We touch all of it because there's so many. There's hundreds of beneficial microbes listed in regenerative soil, and these lists are just the beginning, though these are the most comprehensive lists that are available. So you can figure out what works for you, what's best for you. And it's not just like this. You're like, how do I know? Where's the profile on this? Well, I go through the profiles of the individual mycorrhizae, and so you can choose and pick. I showcase some of that over this week in some of the talks. So backtrack, check that out. But know that I cover everything so that you can test, you can design, you can choose, and you can make your soil regenerative by following these simple micro to macro actions and following this paradigm of cycling of the natural order. So, what if your soil improved every season significantly? It would look something like this, right? Yeah, yeah. So, join us this season. We start Monday. So, not tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. So, tomorrow's tomorrow. Join us for regenerative soil. If you're watching this on Sunday, it's tomorrow. And get past the one size fits all thinking. Figure out what's right for your context. Choose. It's a choose your own adventure. That's how I design things so that you can develop your fluency from your perspective and then see through the eyes of everyone else. We cover the biology, the chemistry, the minerals, the plants, all the cycles, all the climate types, all the soil types. You can learn how to solve the problems. We address all the soil problems. We get down to the nitty gritty soil remediation from chemicals, from heavy metals, from toxins. You can learn how to grow pest and disease resistant plants because we cover all of these things that we talked about this week. These folks that you're learning from are the folks that taught me, the folks that I learned one-on-one from and helped me and peer reviewed my work, both in the books and in the course, so that I could bring this all to you at this level. And not only that, this program, you have the option to sign up to get access to the introduction to regenerative soil microscopy. So you can learn how to use a microscope to understand and evaluate your soil at an introductory level and prepare you for the full 20-week experience. So make your soil holistic management plan with us. Get started. Whether you guys notice that the 5 linchpins are here as actions. So, soil organic matter solutions, your mineral amendments, your biofertilizers, biostimulants, that's the biology. The cover crops, right? That's the plants you're going to be using. And that's the aeration and hydration. This is your management plan. So you're going to get more carbon and organic matter. You're going to increase your soil biology. You're going to get nutritionally denser plants. You're going to get rid of those poisons and get rid of those toxins. You're going to have higher water holding capacity. You're going to be able to save money and get higher yields. You're going to be able to do all the things that you need to do to have a successful business. So what's included in this? We've got weekly videos, audio downloads, 2 to 4 hours per week for 20 weeks. It's funny, it says 16. I gotta fix that. Yeah, so it started off as 16 weeks and then I expanded the course to 20. And so the first season of it, oh, the live replays, there's no season 1 after week 16. You'll see. And so it's 2 to 4 hours a week, and then we have 1 to 2 hours of live. I don't let you leave until I've answered all your questions. Or the other way around. It's so much fun. I don't know we just have so much fun together. We hang out every single week. So join us, and it's lifetime. So we got alumni in there asking harder and harder questions, helping each other, showcasing their successes. So it's live weekly Q&A. I sent out a survey so that we're reaching you. We're getting your question, regardless of whether you can be with us live. You can watch your answer on the replay. This is so important to me. But it's also really important that if you're there live, your follow-up question, your aha turn, every good question has the opportunity for a follow-up question because that's the train of thought. And if you stop the train of thought at one stop, you don't actually complete the full cycle of your thinking. And as a teacher, I care about that a lot. So that's what we do. So Regenerative Soil, the ebook, the audiobook, the exclusive audiobook, that's not available anywhere else. The audiobook, it's only available inside the course. We have a lot of guest teachers, a lot of case studies. We join consultants on commercial consultancies and see them using compost tea, using compost extract, and causing the change, making it happen. And you can earn your regenerative soil certification. And you're learning the how to and the science behind it all and developing that fluency so that you can apply this to a lot of different things. We've got people who have changed their businesses, launched businesses, created products. Plus, there's hardcover book options and bonus options as well. It's easy, it's affordable. We've got payment plans, and it's a fraction of the cost of other programs that cover less information. So it's 20% of the cost of the Soil Food Web Schools programs. Especially for you guys, it's that 20%. So you guys have the option to sign up for the Our Soil Deluxe package and get $500 off this course. So it could only, this is huge. We're talking about $500 off, a 30% discount. So we cover the soil food web approach. I was taught one-on-one by Elaine Ingham. And Korean natural farming. That's natural farming. When we talk about Chris Trump's work and Master Cho, regenerative ag, John Kemp, Olivia Huson, biochar, So many biochar teachers, biofertilizers, so many biofertilizer teachers, mineral science, fourth phase water, EM, fermentations, holistic management, Michael Phillips' work, and so much more, unifying it into the principles and the science behind all of these ideas and these practices. Is a composite. And we go down to the original studies. I love to look at the original source material. I was an English teacher, I was a history teacher credentialed. And always, even now as a homeschool parent, we go and we read the original source material, right? Why would you do anything else? We got the Norton anthologies, the collegiate texts, and that's why we read the original texts, because that's where the real information is. So that's what we do in the courses, and I make it understandable and create scaffolding so you can really understand it. And then you can start reading those journals and literature yourself. So we have over 650 students now. It's we keep it growing. It keeps growing. There's so many teachers involved, wonderful people. You may recognize a few faces from this week, from our community. A regenerative soil. This is a course that I love. This is a course that has transformed my life as a teacher, but also has transformed other people. A lot of people see all this information and get intimidated. They're like, Matt, chemistry, I hated chemistry. I remember chemistry. I got in a fight with that teacher. That was me. I got kicked out of class. The teacher, like, literally made fun of my stutter. I had a terrible time in chemistry. Terrible. So I get you. I had to overcome that too. You know who got me to overcome that? Elaine Ingham. I told her that story and she was like, Matt, you are so smart and capable. You get this stuff. Don't let past experiences limit you. This is what she told me in 2014. That's how I literally asked her for her help and told her that story. And so I've always been keen to create a space where people felt safe to learn. And this is what Christina has to say. I had my doubts about whether I could manage on this course because I've always been intimidated by science. And this has been such a non-threatening, uplifting way of learning. So thank you so much, truly. If you loved the way I've taught this week, recognize I will not be doing the fire hose. I'll be meeting it out. It's spread out. I have breathing room. So much of the stuff I do, I try to get you to understand and see the majesty, the reach, the breadth, and I tend to be a fire hose. Yeah. But the way I teach when I get to teach with the full room and full attention of everyone, it takes me like 20 weeks. I like to spread it out. I like to get everyone's on board. That's the other thing. I basically, by doing these Q&As for 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours, I get a really good summative assessment of how well they're understanding the material. And then I can literally in real time reteach things that they didn't understand in the modality that they prefer, that they're exhibiting in their question. I have a master's degree in education. This is literally what I did. I taught teachers how to do such authentic education that they could reach kids across modalities and get rid of homework so that they could get higher test scores on standardized tests without doing standardized test prep at all. So, so comes down to authentic learning. And this has been a joy for me. Like I said, as an educator, this is my joy to be able to do this because it is an extension of what I've been doing for almost 2 decades. David Goldrup says, wow, haven't even had my coffee yet, as though I've been get through. I was so thoroughly engaged and was in a time warp because those 45 minutes seemed like seconds. I love it. Jeffrey McAvoy says, this is now the fourth time I'm listening to this week's lesson in full. So much great info. This is why people take it over and over again, but it's not intimidating. So you take it over again and you get something more out of it each time. But you get something out of it the first time, of course, too. But but it's this building, this fluency, this iteration. And this is how I've always designed curriculum. This is how I do it. And so Leslie Moraquand, I teach physical geography at the college level. I am now changing how I teach about the hydrosphere, meteorology, the atmosphere, all of it because of this course. because of the fundamental aspects I've been able to tie together for them so that they're now seeing with a fluency. Remember, I said the fluency causes us to understand things at a completely different level. Remember, the endophytes are causing antioxidants in the plants. Plants are lowering their ROS, so they're lowering their reactive oxygen species. Oxidative stress is linked to cancer. Oxidative stress is linked to stress in the plant and disease in the plants. It's all one thing. Yeah. So oxidative stress is the root of all disease and all cancer in humans. So antioxidant plants, huge part of the reason why they're so good for us is because we're getting those antioxidants in. Antioxidizing microbes in our system may very well be something we talk about in the future as the probiotics that we want. Again, I'm going to be working on that book, Mind, Body, and Soil, along with doctors to map that fully out. So thank you, Leslie. And we have a lot of college professors that take this course, and I didn't realize. I mean, I knew eventually it would happen, but I didn't know that folks were being taught with my books in universities, and they already are. And so we have people graduating with soil biology degrees, and my book was their main book. It's unbelievable. And so these things are moving forward, they're happening, and I just feel so grateful. And this comes from a community. You know, all those people that you saw, Dr. Olivia Husson, Dr. White, John Kemp, Don Huber, all these different individuals we've touched base with. We're citing, we're sourcing, we're grounding this in all the science from all the different angles, replicating it. And as Rakesh says, we're making this real. I want to make it real for you. Sarah says, thanks for another phenomenal week of knowledge and videos. There's no course like this, and it is singularly unique in its approach and teaching. I these these courses that I'm teaching really are an expression of my craft as a teacher, but also of the need to get this right. We have to do it right so that it iterates and builds into that regenerative future. And I've been designing this and working on this, the larger bridge that we've talked about for over a decade. So what if you're a certified school soil food web graduate, right? You got your certificate, you got your lab. You've been serving customers for 10 years, let's say. Or you're more recently, a full graduate of the new program, doing it for 2 years. Well, I can tell you that I have hundreds of that 650, hundreds of them are from that program. Huge proportion of the people in that program are graduates. A lot of them have labs. Taking my time trying to catch up with y'all. I'm in week 4, even though I graduated Soil Food Web. This class is a third understanding and 2/3 stop the video and look through the book or the encyclopedia or dictionary for the definition. Laugh out loud. I'm not discouraged though. I know with time and experimenting, it will start to make more sense. They already had a lot of information prior and they had to do some relearning, updating, correcting, expanding to the more holistic perspective. And, this is what Mike Garcia, award-winning Los Angeles landscaper, and he's been award-winning for over 5 years. He's an incredible person who does incredible work and looks for the real results. I took and love Dr. Landingham's courses. Your course is completely different from our course. You give us the answers to the whys. So glad I'm taking your course. See, this is why I do it because I want you to understand the why so you make informed decisions, so you can improvise, so you can see the natural farmer, know what they're doing, even if you choose to do something else in the methods. You understand why they're doing it and why they're successful. Why John Kemp's successful. Why Elaine is successful. You see it from the perspective of nature. That's why I love this. And I don't want you to miss it. We begin Monday. And then we've got some crazy bonuses. We got all these ebooks. We also have, if you choose the book, it's included. We also have regenerative entrepreneurs and experts. It's included as an option. You don't have to have this. It's an option. So you can learn my proven frameworks, and I've done the framework 7 times. And the reason we have these books is because I'm successful with Kickstarters, right? Well, I have a formula and a framework for you. So teaching, writing, presenting, and speaking, publishing, online marketing, and launching crowdfunders, I have frameworks for it all, for every single aspect of what I'm doing in my business. And my Kickstarter formula for success, I've shared it, and Gavin became an author because of it. He's one of my students. His his advanced permaculture design certificate, not his PDC, that's his PDC right there, but his advanced was creating the book. He created the whole system, then did the seed saving, did the recipes, and then created the book as a guide to not just do the recipes, but also do the seed saving and do the whole regenerative cycle, seed to table. And then if you guys know Gardens That Matter, I remember when she was below 100,000 followers when she was in my course. Matt's course has prompted me to look at my business with fresh eyes and design its future intentionally. She exploded after this course. Too often I'm immersed into the day-to-day details of day-to-day business. Taking this course gave me the space and encouragement to do much bigger picture thinking. That's what it's all about. When you can think big picture, all those little things fall into place. So you could be earning your certificate in this course when you sign up for that course. And it's your option, but you could also sign up and get the introduction to regenerative soil microscopy. This is a this is an extensive course. There's a lot in this course. It is still an introduction. So if you want to get introduced to microscopy, you want to start on microscopy, it's a great, friendly, nice way, spaced out, introductory way to learn. It's going to be perfect for you. And it's 6 weeks. It's perfect for a just deep dive enough. And you get the exclusive ebook. And I say exclusive, and I mean it. You cannot buy this ebook. You can only receive it as a gift in these courses. So whether you're taking regenerative soil microscopy as a course or this course, this is the only way to get the ebook. And the ebook's instantly searchable. So it's a PDF. You can just type in a word and find it in there and search through it and find the thing you were looking for exactly. That's included. I hope you realize that we've already covered and surpassed the actual value of the price of the sign up. So you're getting more than double the value for well, you're getting more than the value of the course on discount for free. So it's huge savings, huge bonuses. I mean, you can learn microscopy with with this course. It's actually self-paced, and Brightfield and beyond is what you can learn about, and you can take part in the RSOL database. And so you can be seeing your minerals, your biology, your plant, all the different tests in one place, comparing them not just to yourself over time and the actions you took and the results, but across your bioregion, across your plant type, across your pH, seeing that change, seeing those nuances, seeing that growth, seeing the regeneration. And all those points of distinction we're going to build in because that's going to change everything. It's going to change everything. So we're talking about like a 3-for-1 course option here. Wild value. Lots of bonuses, lots of options, and payment plans that work for you. This new season starts Monday, November 25th. Sign up and join us at and this is a main page for all my soil science. So regenerativesoilscience.com. You can go there. It's a lead link. It'll have reviews on my books. It'll have book links. It'll have course links, introductory course links, full course links. But you're gonna have to click on the 20-week course if you go that route. I'm gonna send you an email tomorrow with a link and remind you that you can sign up and save $500 on your sign up if you sign up for the deluxe package for our soil. This conference, which means you get to keep all the conference. And not only that, you get to be part of a raffle for tomorrow where you might win the course. So in your effort to get 30% off, you might very well win the entire course and a t-shirt, of course. So we begin Monday. Don't miss out. Feel free to take the time and go sign up now, either to the r-soil.com sign up so that you get $500 off and are part of the raffle, or regenerativesoilscience.com, click on the course, and then sign up on that new site there. Because I want to just give you as much as I can. I want to show you the great diversity of possibilities, solutions, processes, and methods. I want to inspire you. I want to uplift you. I want to share the hope. And, so much of today, so many of the talks, we're really talking about hope. And that's what this really is. People now have hope that their business can be profitable. People now have hope that they can pass the family farm down to the next generation. And it's not them saying, stepping into a lesser life. It's stepping into greatness, stepping into a greater expression than they've ever been able to accomplish with that land. It is the opening of a new door. It is the opening for consultants to go out and help farmers transition, to help gardeners, to help businesses to start compost companies that are the inoculant, that are the solution, that are the catalyst, like catalyst bio amendments to the problems that we face in the world today. Our world could be so much more regenerative. I hope that this week has inspired you, has opened the door to new understanding and new hope, new visions for a better tomorrow, for that regenerative future, because it's not in one person's mind. It's not even in all these teachers' minds. It's in all of our minds. You hold keys. You hold part of the pattern that fits together for the symphony of solutions. We can't do it alone. It's always from the community. The box, the Shakespeare's came out of a community of fluency, and so the solutions will come out of that community. And I'm just so excited for it. I hope that you are. I appreciate you all being so active and being part of our soil. This has been such an incredible week. I cannot put into words how grateful I am and how excited I am to continue with you. So many of you, I see your comments. Thank you. We'll reconvene on Monday, and we'll reconvene tomorrow live for the raffle for the course choice, because it could be regenerative soil, $1,500, but it also could be $2,000 course, regenerative soil microscopy. It's all up to you. When you win the raffle, when you sign up for the deluxe deep dive, r-soil.com. I will see you tomorrow. I'm Matt Powers. Grow abundantly, learn daily, and live regeneratively. This was Our Soil 2024. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to unmute you guys. What a week. What an incredible week. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for everybody. It was
It's a
great to
beautiful
chat.
week.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
everyone.
Matt.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great night, great week,
See you,
great
Matt.
weekend, and I'll see you tomorrow for the raffle.
Take care.
All right.